What's up, everyone? Welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 4 preview for Section 1B, 1C, and D in the Hudson Valley Football League. And man, we're already at Week 4, Mars. The matchups are getting more and more important. League standings start peaking at, starting to look at the playoff picture. But how's it going, brother?
Yeah, man, we're halfway through the season. I think we're getting closer to the, like you said before, the playoff picture, and I think that's going to be where things start to heat up and get more interesting. So I'm looking forward to see what's gonna happen next.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to welcome our audience. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like always, if you're new, welcome. And if you like this content, please make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe for future content and to help out the channel. Also, if you would like to donate to our cause and to our channel to help us grow, you can get access to our Patreon in the description below, as well as our website at fansportsny.com. And now that that's done, what we're going to do for this show, Mars, we are going to talk about the games on slate. I will give kind of a peek into the league standings for the different divisions, talk about the top four at least. And then we'll break down a couple of the big games and pick them at the end, all the games at the end. So let's dive into it, Mars. A couple Hudson Valley Football League games. Hudson Valley Football League Ramapo at Port Chester in a league game. Hudson Valley Football League Edgemont at Walter Panas in a league game. Another Hudson Valley Football League game, Hastings at Spring Valley. That is non-league. We have a C matchup, Albertus Magnus 0-3 at Blindbrook, non-league. Another C matchup, Westlake at Dobbs Ferry is non-league. Hudson Valley Football League, Poughkeepsie at Greeley in a rematch for the Hudson Valley Football League Championship of last year. We have a CD matchup, Tuckahoe at Putnam Valley. We have a B matchup, Henhut at Nanuet. Another B matchup, Ardsley at Bronxville. A B matchup, Briarcliff Hamilton Football Program at Pearl River in a league matchup. A C and D matchup, Haldane at Rhinebeck in a non-league. A C matchup, Valhalla at Woodlands in a non-league. We have a B matchup, Byram Hills at Pleasantville in a league game. Hudson Valley Football League game, Tappan Zee at Peekskill. And a C matchup, Croton Harmon at Irvington is a non-league. When we look at the standings, let's start with B, Mars. Byram Hills is sitting at the top, tied with Pleasantville, both 3-0 in league play. Byram Hills is 4-0, Pleasantville is 3-0. Then we have Nanuet and Ardsley, both 2-1. Now, Nanuet did beat Ardsley, so they get the tiebreaker if the season would end today. Both 2-1 in league play. Then Pearl River and Bronxville are 1-2 in league play. Pearl River is 1-2, Bronxville is 1-3. Briarcliff and Henhut are 0-3 in league play. Briarcliff Hamilton Football Program is 1-3, and Henhut is 0-3. When we look at C and D, again, C and D is kind of the more difficult one because there's two different leagues. The D teams have been split up in those two leagues, but D is not counted there because they go right to the section title game. But I'm going to call it A and B. So when you look at C, from the A side, Valhalla and Westlake, both 2-0 league play. They're sitting at the top, followed by Putnam Valley and then Croton Harmon. In the B side, Dobbs Ferry, Rhinebeck, and Woodlands are all 1-1 in league play. Now Dobbs Ferry has the better record at 2-1. Then Irvington is at 1-2. And when you look at D schools, Tuckahoe is 3-0, Haldane is 2-1. For the Hudson Valley Football League, we have the Mountain and River Conference. In the Mountain Conference, Greeley, when we look at the top four, Greeley is 2-0 and Ramapo is 2-0. Greeley is 3-1 though, record-wise. Ramapo is 2-2. Followed by Spring Valley and Port Chester, both 1-2 in league play. On the Riverside, Walter Panas and Edgemont, both 2-0. Walter Panas is 3-1, Edgemont is 2-1, and then Tappan Zee is 1-1 league play. Hastings is 1-2. So those are the league standings. Now let's talk about some of the top matchups. Let's start with the Hudson Valley Football League matchup. Edgemont 2-1 at Walter Panas 3-1. Big league game. Winner gets sole possession of first place. Edgemont won versus Hastings last week. Walter Panas won versus Peekskill. When you look at Edgemont, Mars, they've been very impressive on both sides of the ball so far this season. Number 2 offense out of the Hudson Valley Football League in points scored. And defensively, they're number 1 in points allowed. But offensively, 40-plus points, 2 straight. Starts with their quarterback, Melangi Leonardo. He's had 3 or 4 touchdowns last week. He's a guy who hurt you with his arm, hurt you with his legs, dual threat guy, design quarterback runs, and he has a cannon when his feet are set. He can make big plays, but he's got weapons. I mean, wide receiver Cam is a big one. Elenikos, the running back, 2 rushing touchdowns last week. Seido's another running back. But I'm looking at this offensive line has done a pretty good job. Parsons, Kamingas, off-tackle runs, quarterback runs. Pass pro is going to be really huge this week against the speed of Walter Panas, especially they like to be aggressive. But this offense has made big plays. Defensively, They like to be very aggressive. They like to blitz. They like to bring pressure. Olinkos has been a real good two-way player for them, really wrecking havoc. They're going to have a quarterback spy on Carlucci, keeping everything in the box because Walter Panas has a lot of speed. Mars, what are your thoughts on Edgemont?
Yeah, Edgemont, I think offensively, Leonardo has been obviously a very good player, but they have several guys that have been really stepping up, which is great to see. And the offensive line, I think, has been really the most impressive to me because of the fact that they've been kind of opening up a lot of lanes for their playmakers. Defensively, I think they like to bring the pressure, but the big question is going to be, do they land on that pressure? And if they do, they're going to get their offense back on the field, which will generate more points.
Yeah, looking at Walter Panas, though, Mars, offensively, they're number 3 in the Hudson Valley Football League in points scored. Defensively, they're number 2, right? So another impressive on both sides of the ball. Offensively, it starts with their quarterback. Travis Carlucci, Mars, I'm going to say this. I think he's the best player in the Hudson Valley Football League. I know it's a bold statement, and I'm going to stick by it. He's had over 100 yards rushing in 2+ touchdowns now in 3 straight games. He's not the only guy. Paul Rongo has been another big, important player. Touchdown in 3 straight games as well. Jed Chisholm, he's had a receiving touchdown last week. This is a rush offense. They like to spread you out. They like to run the ball. They will throw at times, but it's about running the football with them. And they like to spread you out and create space for their stud guys running the football. Defensively, Mars, 13 or less points now in 3 straight games. They have a lot of speed. They like to bring some pressures, create those negative plays. Obviously, keeping Gio Leonardo in the pocket. They got to play some good man coverage. Some of these weapons are pretty big, but Gio Leonardo, keeping him in the pocket and preventing big rush plays from him is going to be top priority number 1. Mars, what are your thoughts on Walter Panas?
Yeah, I think offensively, I think they have a general overall solid guys running the ball. I think that's going to be their key, right? Walter Panas has been a rush offense at heart, and I feel like they've just been doing very well. There's a reason why they're 3rd overall in the Hudson Valley Football League and just offense in general. And I do agree that defensively, they've just been bringing a lot of guys. Front sevens are pretty solid. I think they have to really try to contain G. Leonardo from getting outside because he can really hurt you with his legs. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can do this because they do have some guys that can really drain the clock on the offensive side.
My matchup, Travis Carlucci, Mars, versus the edge of this defense. Guys like Peter Olinkos of Edgemont and the rest of these edge defenders is going to be huge. All right, Mars, let's go to another Hudson Valley Football League game. Poughkeepsie, 0-3 at Greeley, who's 3-1. League matchup. There's a rematch of the Hudson Valley Football League title game. And a bit of a rivalry growing between these two. But Poughkeepsie lost last week to Portchester. Greeley won versus Spring Valley. When I look at Poughkeepsie, again, offensively, I think they've been improving at times offensively over the last couple weeks. Defensively, it's kind of been the big struggle. But let's start offensively. Rashawn Wise-Davis had a rushing touchdown. Big one, 41 yards last week. He's going to have to hit some big running plays this week. And we look at that quarterback, Kaiden Birdsong. He had a passing touchdown to Devarian Davis. Jalen Lee is another guy who's been a reliable target for them. Listen, they're going to have to score some points against this Greeley defense because Greeley offense, is going to move the ball. So these guys are going to have to make some big plays. Again, spreading the ball out. Running it is going to be top priority number 1 to keep Greeley's offense off the field, but they've got to hit some big pass plays. Defensively, Jason Johnson has been a real leader for this defense. He kind of all over the place making tackles. Prince Boone had an INT a couple weeks ago. Listen, Greeley has been very efficient. They have multiple backs that can hurt you. Quarterback has been really, really good. So you got to try to take away one thing, right? You're not going to take away everything. Focusing on one thing. I'm interested to see, hey, let's take away the pass, or we got to stop these running backs and kind of put our DBs on an island. Mars, what are your thoughts on Poughkeepsie?
Yeah, I really like the way that the rush offense is, but I really think it's going to depend on the offensive line and trying to get some, just move some bodies out of the way, get some lanes open for these backs because they are playmakers. They get in the open space, they can really, kind of burn anybody. And defensively, I agree. I think Jason Johnson has been basically all over the field. I think the defense in general has been very efficient. I think it's going to be a really good test to see if they can try to limit the amount of big plays from this Greeley offense because you're not going to stop everything because of how efficient they are. But I just think that you need to try to slow them down or at least limit the amount of big plays that they have.
Yeah, I think the defense is giving up too many big touchdowns. So I'm going to Greeley, Mars. This is the number 1 offense in the Hudson Valley Football League. Really impressive. They've been talking about a lack of respect that's been given to them, Mars. Well, I think they've earned it over the last couple of weeks. I think they've been playing as good as anybody in this Hudson Valley Football League. Offensively, they have multiple weapons. They hurt you out in the spread. Their running back, McKinney, has been tremendous for them the last couple of weeks. And last week, 171 yards and 4 touchdowns, really big time. But he's not the only back. I mean, they have him. They have Alex Edenbaum also at the running back spot, who's made some plays for them. They have a nice little tandem at the running back spot. But their quarterback, Julian Osh, has been really impressive to me. He's made some good decisions, smart with the ball, making correct reads, and he's been pretty accurate. He had a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown last week, and they have some wide receiver weapons that can win one-on-one battles. I mean, this is a dangerous offense when this offensive line pass protects. They can make some big-time plays, and I think they're going to continue to do that against Poughkeepsie defense that has given up some big touchdowns. Defensively, Mars is the number 4 defense, so not a bad defense either. I think, again, stopping the run is going to be top priority, so I'm looking at those linebackers in Forster and Caplow to kind of stop things up front, force Poughkeepsie into those uncomfortable situations, but they got to tackle in space, right? That's going to be a huge thing. Tackling in space against Poughkeepsie is big. You can't have missed tackles that leads to big plays. Mars, what are your thoughts on Greeley?
Yeah, I think Greeley's offense definitely deserves more respect, just because I think that they've just been super efficient. Well, multiple ways to attack a defense. I think rush offense has been their priority, but just their spread scheme kind of is that trying to get the matchups. And I think Greeley's been doing a very good job at finding those matchups and get their guys, in the open space. Defensively, I think they've also been pretty solid too. I think, in my opinion, they do need to send some stunts, but I think they have to try to contain this rush offense that Poughkeepsie has. And then when they try to open up for the pass, they have to really try to close in and force some sacks, force some turnovers, and I think get your offense back the ball, and I think they'll definitely score.
My matchup, I'm looking at this Poughkeepsie offensive line versus the Greeley D line. I think is going to be a huge one and one to keep an eye on this week. Let's go to the next matchup, a C matchup, Mars. Westlake 2-1 at Dobbs Ferry is 2-1. This is a non-league game. Westlake 1 versus Haldane. Dobbs Ferry 1 versus Blindbrook. These teams have split the series. The last time they played was in 2018 when Westlake won. They've only been 1-1. 2 games, excuse me. Let's start with Westlake. Offensively, Mars, this is the number 3 offense out of the 12 teams in the C and D schools. And this offense, I mean, we know about the rush attack, right? Last week, multiple backs can hurt you, and you saw that again this past weekend. They have multiple guys who can make plays for you in this rush attack. Again, wing T rush attack has been really strong. And Osapinti, I know I'm probably butchering his name. He had 78 yards rushing. He also, I believe, was 2 touchdowns. Knapp had 34 yards rushing. He had a kick return touchdown, so he got some rush as well. Callie had 33 yards rushing and a touchdown. Pagan also 64 yards rushing. I mean, they have multiple backs who are going to get some carries here, and a bunch of them can make plays. Now, they've got different styles to them, but overall, the team speed is really strong. And Pagan also was 3-7 passing for 56 yards and touchdown. Again, not as efficient as you wanted, but hit a big play to Castellano on the right sideline for a receiving touchdown was big. This is an offense, again, focusing on the run, focusing on controlling time of possession, and using their speed to their advantage. Now, last week, I thought they used their size pretty well. This time around, Dobbs Ferry is a little bit bigger. I don't know if size is going to be the biggest factor, that they're just going to muscle them around, but I do think they can use their speed to get to the outside. Defensively, listen, this is the number 4 defense out of 12 teams. They've only given up 1 touchdown each of the last 2 weeks, and they're playing fast. I think they're playing more sound. They're not missing as many tackles as they did in week 1 against Tuckahoe. But listen, you're going up against a heavy rush offense with a big fullback. You have to swarm to him. No one guy's not going to tackle him, right? So you need to have multiple guys to him. And Brandon Holman is their big play threat. They can't let him get to the outside. Now, although that team has a lot of speed in Westlake, Dobbs Ferry's got some guys who can outrun. So you got to be smart on the edge. Marshall, what are your thoughts on Westlake?
Yeah, I think Westlake has a kind of a multiple-headed dragon on the rush attack, because they have multiple different people that can really show out, right? I think that's going to be probably the most dangerous thing that Westlake has, is that they have multiple guys that can hurt you. And for defensive coaches out there, that's going to be tough, because you're looking at who to scheme against, and if multiple guys can really hurt you on the offensive end, it's going to be hard to really scheme against that. And defensively, I just think that they have been playing efficient. They have to play more efficiently. I just think that it's going to depend on the front line try to limit, the amount of, I think because you have Brian Dan and Dobbs Ferry, it's going to be tough to bring him down. But like you said, you have a lot of speed at the H-back spots. So the question is going to be, can they keep these speedsters contained? If they can, then at least gives the offense 4 chances to try to score some points.
Moving to Dobbs Ferry, Marshall, offensively, this is the number 4 offense in points scored on the C&D schools. Again, offensively, Brian Dan really he really had a strong performance last week. After a couple weeks ago, he was kind of slowed down. Last week, 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. But the guy who's really been a spark plug, complementary to Brian Dan, is Brandon Holman. 138 yards rushing and a touchdown last week on 9 carries. Also 134 return yards and a touchdown. He's now 100-plus yards, I think, in 3 straight games now for Brandon Holman. He is a big-time playmaker for them. He's going to have to be huge because I know Westlake, they're looking to take away Dan first, right? So it's going to leave opportunities for Brandon, especially, I think, receiving out of the backfield as well. So in special teams, receiving out of the backfield, some of those end-around stuff, those are going to be really important for this offense. But, they also showed that they have some multiple guys who can make plays. They had 5 different guys after a rushing touchdown last week, right? So they have multiple guys, but obviously the big 2 is Brian Dan and Holman. They have to really carry the load this upcoming weekend. Defensively, this is the number 6 defense, Mars. I do think defensively taking a little bit of a step back. They've given up some bigger plays that they haven't in past years. Dressel Lewis, though, he's been really good for them. He had a rushing touchdown last week, 2 INTs. This guy's had now multiple INTs for multiple weeks. He's been a big play guy for them. If they can get, again, Westlake, similar to Dobbs Ferry, if you can get them behind the chains, they're not just a drop-back throw at 20-time team, right? So they want to be ahead of the chains. They want to throw in rhythm. If they can get them behind the chains and have a guy like Dressel Lewis make plays for them, it's going to be huge. But how do they stop this wing and team rush attack? Westlake's got a lot of speed. Don't let them get to the outside. It's going to be bad news. Mars, what are your thoughts on Dobbs Ferry?
I think Dobbs Ferry has some solid offensive rush attack. Obviously, Brian Dan is obviously, in my opinion, he's like an all-section player. He's just a beast.
Yeah, no doubt.
And Brandon Holman is just another one that could really be a good piece to add with Brian Dan for this rush offense. And I just think that the fact that they have multiple ways to play and multiple ways to get points is going to be dangerous. And defensively, I agree with you. I think that the fact that Westlake likes to run, you're going to try to narrow where they can attack from, right? You want to try to contain because these backs of Westlake are speeds. They can make some plays if you let them open space.
Yeah, my matchup, Mars, this could be a 1.5 hour game with the way both these teams run the football. I'm looking to see the time of possession between both rush offenses. These rush offenses keeping the other on the sideline. That's going to be the most interesting matchup to me, these rush attacks. All right, let's go to the next game. Our CD matchup, Tuckahoe 3-0 at Putnam. Valley was 2-1. This is non-league. Tuckahoe won versus Irvington last week. Putt Valley won versus Croton Harmon. And when we look at Tuckahoe, Mars, I think Tuckahoe has been the most impressive team I've seen in all of Section 1. They're up there with the top teams. Playing on both sides of the ball. Offensively, Mars, the number 1 offense out of the C&D schools. They have scored 30-plus points in 3 games. Quarterback Annunziata has got to be up there for most valuable player so far this year. Last week, 11-13, 154 yards, 3 touchdowns, 44 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. 5 more touchdowns added this week, Mars. Really, really important player for them. He is the engine. And this guy has just been so good to start the season. Throwing the ball, running the ball, clutch moments, and he's obviously going to have to continue that this week. But Smith has been another pleasant surprise. 132 yards rushing, a touchdown, also 40 yards receiving and a touchdown. They have that, again, bell cow running back, quarterback who can make big plays. Do they have a reliable target? Yeah, John Banke, 4 receptions, 85 yards and a touchdown. He's not the only one. Like, they have Jacob Liberati. He had 3 receptions, 29 yards, a touchdown. Connor Banke's another guy. They have weapons, man. And this offensive line, you have to give them a lot of credit. They've been playing their butts off. This has been a well-rounded, strong performance by everyone on that offense. And that's why they're number 1 in points scored out of the C&D schools. Defensively, they had a shutout last week. This is the number 2 defense in points allowed. Listen, going up against a strong rush attack in Putt Valley, that's got to be the number 1 priority. Stopping that rush attack. They did a pretty good job of that last week, including 2 weeks ago. they've done a good job of stopping the run when they needed to. They're going to be at another test this week. Excuse me, Mars. What are your thoughts on Tuckahoe?
Tuckahoe, I think overall, like you said, has been the most surprising team, but they've been, I think, the most efficient team so far. And I think that their offensively, they just have multiple guys that can kind of that can burn you. And I think that you let them in open space, they're going to really cause some havoc. Defensively, I think that they just obviously need to lower the amount of rush attempts that Pup Valley is going to get, because they're looking to run the ball. To limit the amount of they're going to run the ball, and I think that if you get the ball back on your side, I think they're going to try to drain that clock, run the ball. I think that's going to be the game plan here for Tuckahoe.
Yeah, I also want to make clear that Tuckahoe, not so much surprise team for me, most impressive. I know. Just want to clear that up. But let's go to Pup Valley, Mars. Offensively, this is the number 5 team out of 12 C&D schools in points scored. And listen, we know Pup Valley, their number one identity, number one priority is running the ball. And Ricky Meister has been really strong for them this season. He had 135 yards last week for a rushing touchdown, also 19 receiving yards. He is the engine of this offense. Him getting as many carries as he can and finding some lanes to run through. It's not going to be easy versus this Tuckahoe front, but he's extremely important. McDonald's another guy. He added 35 yards rushing and a touchdown last week. But this rush attack is so important. It opens things up for them to be efficient in the passing game, which they're going to have to hit some plays, right? Thomas Cunningham had a good game. 6 of 9, 96 yards. He also had a rushing touchdown as a guy who can use his legs as well. And I think they're going to have to run the ball again with Meister, with McDonald, Cunningham at times, and try to get the ball to Caden Glenn, a young player for them out on the outside. He had 72 yards receiving. He seems to be a guy who's been getting better every week. And he's probably one of their most explosive athletes on the outside in the passing game. Defensively, listen, they forced a couple turnovers last week. The defensive lineman, Alex Gassage, is going to be so important to try to get pressure on Annunziata. He had 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. And stopping this rush attack between Annunziata and Smith is so important. They do such a good job putting the defense on their heels, which generates huge plays. But Hudson Speraza, he had an INT last week. He's going to be another one at the linebacker spot. It's going to have to be big. Kyle Mello's another guy, had an INT last week. This defense is going to have to try to force some turnovers, Mars. What are your thoughts on Putnam Valley?
Yeah, I think Pup Valley, I think they're going to really just do the basic idea of they're going to try to run the ball, develop that run play, and then try to do some play action, try to build up off of that. And I think that they've just been playing better overall. They've been getting better as the season goes on. And I just like the way they run the ball here. I think their offensive line is playing pretty decently. And they're going to have to try to prioritize that again. Defensively, I think that they, obviously, I think the D-line specifically needs to step up here. Because obviously, looking at Tuckahoe, they're going to try to run the ball a lot, right? And I think that the key thing is going to try to be to keep these guys contained to a certain extent and just try to funnel everything into the linebacker. So that's going to be, I think, what the key thing is here.
Yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. My matchup, Mars, Tuckahoe O-line versus the Pup Valley D-line. No question, and you kind of explained why that. Let's go to the next matchup, Mars. B matchup, Ardsley 2-1 at Bronxville 1-3. But Ardsley's 2-1 in league play, Bronxville 1-2. Big league matchup. Ardsley lost at Nanuet last week. Bronxville lost versus Pleasantville. Both very tight games. Ardsley's 5-1-1 versus Bronxville. They have won 4 straight. But let's start with Ardsley. Offensively, this is the number 5 offense out of 8 schools in B in points scored. But defensively, Mars, the number 1 defense in points allowed. This is a very young team, but Ardsley, when I talked before the season, defense is the pride of this program. And boy, they have started off really strong. Number 1 defense in points allowed. But let's start with offense. Last week was a struggle. They've had drives stalled because of penalty, had a touchdown brought back because of penalty. I think they had 5 turnovers, Mars. Can't give up the ball that much. And it really killed them at times. Really stalled drives, prevented them from getting points, and it resulted in a loss. I mean, they didn't score. So, again, I think the most important thing, sticking with the run, giving it to Vega, Silverman, running the football and helping their young quarterback and Rendy, who can make some big plays for you. But it all starts with them running the ball with some efficiency. I think it'll be a little bit easier running the ball this week. They have to stick to it. Defensively, Mars, I mentioned, really strong performances from this defense so far. They've been tough to hit big plays on. They make it difficult. They make you earn every yard, and that has to continue this week against a tougher offense than they faced last week. But it's been led, by the way, by their linebacker, Aiden Wells. Speckman at the defensive line spot has made a lot of plays for them so far this year. Silverman's another guy. I mean, Walks is another guy. They have guys, even some young guys, inexperienced guys who've been making some plays. They have they don't have a lot of vets, but some of these vets have stepped up for them, and a lot of young guys who, there's becoming some household names defensively, and they're going to have to stop this spread attack. But Bronxville, I think, to me, is becoming more and more of a rush offense. So stopping the run is going to be really important this time around. Mars, what are your thoughts on Ardsley?
Yeah, I think Ardsley was way too inefficient last week with 5 turnovers and obviously a lot of penalties. I think the key thing that when you look at Ardsley, they have to really do is just keep things efficient, keep things, and just don't give up these turnovers, but don't kill drives because of penalties. Right, that's going to be the key thing. They're going to be running the ball. Defensively, I think that their defensive front needs to really step up. They need to try to lower the amount that Bronx is going to run, because they're going to try to spread you out to run. Right, they want to see if they get some matchups, against linebackers that are going to give them more an advantage. So the question is going to be, which Ardsley offense are we going to see? Are we going to see the one that turns the ball over, has penalties, or are we going to see one that's more disciplined?
Yeah, let me go to Bronxville, Mars. Offensively, this is the number 2 offense in points scored. And they're missing a key guy. I mean, Luke Stevens didn't play last week. I don't know his status. He's a really important player for them. Big, tall target on the outside. And because, missing someone like that and kind of the consistency at quarterback, right, I think they have to focus in on the run game. And I think they have some of the guys who can do it, and they have a solid size up front. We know that Bronxville has some good size on that offensive line. If they can keep their feet moving and keep locked in, they can drive people. And they're running back Mason and Newton. That's a nice little mixture of some slashing running backs for some size and power at the running back spot. And they did make some pass plays. I mean, I thought they had some strong moments last week, Mars, on that offense. Running the football, and then Pierce Patterson at the wide receiver spot made a really nice diving touchdown grab. And I believe number 11, Owen Atkinson, he had a receiving touchdown as well. So, when you can run the ball, it gives their inexperience. When you have an inexperienced quarterback, it makes it easier for them to find open receivers. It makes them throw in rhythm, right? So I do think that's got to be the formula. They showed a solid formula versus Pleasantville. Obviously, they didn't put up crazy amount of points. Pleasantville is very tough to score on. But you're going up against another tough defense in Ardsley. That's got to be the formula for me. Defensively, they're not too bad defensively, right? This is the number 5 defense out of 8 schools. Again, it could be better. The linebacking core and D-line are going to have to play big time, right? I think Ardsley is really going to try to focus in on the run, kind of control the time of possession, keep Bronxville on the sideline. And so these linebackers and defensive linemen are going to be huge, right? Lufe Sung is going to have to be big. Although Bronxville did play tough at times last week, they did give over 200 yards rushing last week, right? So they have to be strong against the run. And so that's going to be huge. Mars, what are your thoughts on Bronxville?
Yeah, I think when I'm looking at, when I look at Bronxville, Luke Stevens is definitely a guy that I'm looking at. I think that he's going to be a big target. I think here's the issue. I think that with injuries that we currently see with Bronxville, that's the point. It's the injuries, right? It's the point of seeing whether or not who's going to be on the field, right? The fact is that when you're losing some of these guys, you're losing opportunity of what this offense could be, right? And now we're looking at what they are, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because they can score a lot of points. Yeah. They have the ability to now run the ball, which does open up a lot of other facets. But obviously, they're not to the full strength in which they are before. And they were very efficient, especially with the passing game last week and just running the ball in general. I think they were, in the hurry up offense last week, they were just kind of just carving up the Pleasantville defense for a certain amount of time. But at the end of the day, I think that they have a good system going for them. And obviously defensively, I think the key thing is going to be looking at the front seven. They're going to have to step it up big time here. I think this is going to be a very interesting matchup between these two schools. I mean, it's going to be tough to see. I can't wait to see what we pick in our game picks, but it should be interesting.
Yeah, and the matchup I'm looking for, this linebacking core of Bronxville is going to have to play really big versus these running backs of Ardsley. That's the matchup. I think both are going to be extremely important. All right, Mars, the game of the week. Another B matchup. Byram Hills 4-0, 3-0 in league play at Pleasantville, who's 3-0, also 3-0 in league play. And Byron Hills, a 1 versus Briarcliff Hamilton football program. Tight game, tighter than most people thought. Pleasantville also won a very tight game at Bronxville in overtime last week. Byram Hills is 2-1 versus Pleasantville. I think the last time they played each other was the COVID season. Let's talk about Byram Hills. Listen, last week was really ugly. They had 11 penalties last week, right? Just not smooth. At times on defense wasn't smooth. On times on offense it wasn't smooth. Too many drives stalled. And when you look at this offense, Mars, even with all that, this is the number one offense in points scored out of the AP schools. And they had 352 yards of offense. I mean, they were moving the ball. They couldn't finish. The red zone was a huge problem for them. And so I'm interested to see how they rebound this week against a very difficult defense. And the big question to me is I didn't see Jaworski out there at the running back spot last week. Don't know his status again. I don't get health updates for obvious reasons, but he is such an important player for them. And if he's not out there, that's a huge loss. If he is out there, that's a huge boost, right? So that's going to be a real big question mark going into this game. But a guy who stepped in for him played really well. Luke Weiler, he had 74 yards rushing. He also had 2 for 2 on field goals. So when they got drive stalled, he made some big plays for them to get points, right? That's 6 points right there. And that was huge in a 20-10 game, right? So he was really big for them, running the ball, kicking. Obviously, their quarterback, John Accurso, is going to have to step up if Jaworski's not there. 17-29 last week, 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going to have to be big in the passing game, but also running the ball. Pleasantville is very difficult to run the ball against. So I think they're going to have to use his legs, but him being efficient passing the ball is going to be huge this week. And they have some targets. Sean Siegel had a receiving touchdown last week. Big target guy. He's going to have to be huge. Daniel Left also, he had 96 total yards. Lucas Scali had a touchdown reception. They're going to have to make some plays in the passing game. And at times, they're going to have to get some tough, hard-earned runs against a tough Pleasantville front. Defensively, Mars, this is the number 4 defense. They have given up some big plays. My focus is looking on this defensive line. Guys like George Gassage, one of the best defensive linemen in the class, going up against a veteran offensive line in Pleasantville. This defensive front 7 is going to have to play big. And obviously the number 1 target, Daniel Picard, right? He's going to be moving around. He'll take wildcat plays at offense, at quarterback. He'll be the running back. He'll be a wide receiver. Always know where he is on the field. Defense is always going to tilt towards him. So that means guys on the backside, they're going to have to win one-on-one battles versus the other Pleasantville players. Mars, what are your thoughts on Byram Hills?
Yeah, Byram Hills offensively, I think, is a very dangerous group to play against because of the fact that they have a lot of ways to attack you from. But like you said, the issue that we saw, in several ways would be things like penalties, right? Yeah. I think we see that Byram is kind of hurting themselves in a lot of ways because they have a very powerful offense, but things like holding penalties, turnovers, these are all things that can kind of amount to the game becoming more closer than it should have been. And their drives stall because of these penalties. So they need to be more efficient, need to limit the amount of penalties that they have. And I think that even with all this stuff, they're still a top level offense.
Yeah.
They were able to basically, muster up a rush offense, some passes that were efficient last week. And I think that they have a good system in which they can move down the field. So I want to see how they play here. I think defensively they just need to try to. I think everyone kind of knows this. Slow down Daniel Picard. I think at the end of the day he's the key guy for Pleasantville. And as you mentioned before on other episodes, he is like a Houdini player. He just finds a way to make some big time plays. So you have to try to limit that. You try to stop him touching the ball, right? So that's gonna be tough. But that's going to be what they have to do.
Yeah, let's look at Pleasantville. Offensively, they're number 3 out of the 8 schools in points scored so far this season. Offensively, I talk about, how many times do I talk about Mars? Other guys stepping up for this offense that it can't just be Daniel Picard. Well, you know what? Last week, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? So Daniel Picard, 31 carries. So, they fed the beast as much as possible, including some wildcat stuff, especially by the goal line. 212 yards rushing. and 2 touchdowns. He also had 38 yards receiving. I mean, he got plenty of carries and he made the most of it. And at times, again, when you can't find other answers, defense knows you're giving it to Daniel, you still give it to him, right? Because he's that kind of guy who can make plays for you. But you also have to credit the offensive line, Mars. I mean, you don't rush for over 200 yards if your offensive line's not blockable. And so the offensive line did enough last week to open up holes for Daniel. But listen, Aiden Picard, 6 of 11. They didn't ask him to do a lot, but 67 yards passing. Again, Byram Hills is going to be cocked to try to slow down Daniel Picard. It's going to leave opportunities on one-on-one moments for guys like Eric Coleman and McDermott and Hudzinski and even Sadow, right? Another running back. When they move Daniel Picard out to wide receiver, he's going to have to be really important, whether it is run plays or even pass protection to throw it to him is going to be really important. But, you know, it all starts to me with Daniel Picard and the offensive line. Those guys are clicking. Pleasantville is going to move the ball. But can they finish drives is going to be another important factor on this one. Defensively, Mars, this is the number 2 defense in points allowed this season. This defensive front 7 is really difficult to run against. They like to bring pressure. The defensive line, again, can penetrate. And this linebacking core, Horrigan, Mars, he can fly to the football. And these guys were very active last week. They're going to have to be against this really tough rush attack, whether it's Jaworski or Weiler, right? Whoever's running the ball, they have a strong rush attack that likes to attack the C gaps, likes to attack the outside. They got to cause some penetration. Byram Hills has a big front, right? So I look at Horrigan, he had 16 tackles. Saraganda had 10 tackles. Kitsley had 10 tackles. Ardsley, he had a sack and a forced fumble. I mean, front 7 guys, get multiple guys with 10-plus tackles. You know, they're very active. And how about Hudzinski, Mars? I had to, when I watched in the game, I saw him pretty active. 18 tackles when I look at the box score, right? 2 pass deflections, right? He was very, very active last week. And again, when Pleasantville, whether it's been a lot of success for them, they like to jam the box, right? They want to take away the rush, and at times they will put their DBs on islands, right? And so there's some big targets at Byram Hills. These DBs like Hudzinski are going to have to step up at times, be on an island against some big targets in Byram Hills. Marsh, what are your thoughts?
I think Pleasantville, obviously, Daniel Picard is going to be someone to look out for. But like you said before, it's going to be a question of who else steps in and makes some plays, right? Who else is going to kind of contribute to be a game breaker for this game? And I think it has to be a multitude of people. I mean, I think you said already, Eric Coleman's going to have to really step up, but Evan McDermott is going to have to step up, as well as some younger guys who are kind of mixing in, like Brian McPhee, who's a younger guy who's now stepping in on offense and on defense. Like you said, Louis Sadow, another young guy who's stepping up. And obviously you got to have, your defensive line and offensive line have to really push forward, because I think the offensive line for Pleasantville has been playing very, very well. Defensively, I think the key thing is going to be about this front, right? It's going to be, can you get some pressure? Can you slow down the run? Because I think the secondary is good, and I think they can handle being tested. It's just going to be the question of, can you limit the amount of yards that this rush attack is going to gain? I mean, I think at the end of the day, Byram is a great offense, so they're going to get something. The question is, how much do they get, and do they capitalize in the red zone? So that's going to be basically how Pleasantville is going to have to combat.
My keys to the game, Mars, and you can give me your matchup afterwards. My number 1 is big plays. I mean, Byram Hills over the last few weeks, a little bit tougher last week because a couple of them got brought back penalties. They've hit some big plays offensively, right? Big gash plays, 20-plus yard plays. They've hit him. And Pleasantville has also done the same. We know about Houdini, the magician, and Picard. Mars, I'll tell you in the game pick, but I have a plus or minus on big plays that he'll have in this week, 20-plus yarders, right? He always seems to create one every single week. So that's my number 1. And my number 2 is third down. Third down is going to be huge. Byram Hills had way too many 3-and-outs last week. They're going to want to be more efficient, and that offense has been more efficient. And same thing with Pleasantville. Keep Byram Hills' offense off the field. If you can convert on some of those third downs, right? Continue those drives. Even if they don't always result in a touchdown, if you could change field position, if you can win those third down battles, it kind of wears down Byram Hills' defense, keeps Byram Hills' offense on the sideline is going to be big. Mars, you have a matchup you want to share?
Yeah, I think the matchup I'm looking at is going to be Byram Hill's offensive line versus Pleasantville's D line in front seven. I think the question is, will Byram be able to push some of these guys out of the way? I mean, they're pretty big kids, and as well on top of that, they've been very aggressive and very consistent. So the question is, will they get under their pad level? Will they be able to move them? Defensively, I think, like I said, it's going to be a level of, Byram's one of the biggest schools in B. Pleasantville's one of the smaller schools in B. It's going to be like more of a battle of the Titans to see who's going to come away victorious here, because you can so see these two teams playing the section title as well because of how good they are. And I think that's going to be a very interesting matchup to say.
Yeah, very intriguing. My player to watch, Luke Weiler of Byram Hills, Mars, running the ball if Javor's not there. Even if he is there, he's going to get carries. Also as a special teamer, big-time kicker for them. Special teams could be a factor in this one with these two teams identical. Before we go to the game picks, though, Mars, I did a little breakdown on Pleasantville's defense and show why they're so tough to run against. For this video, we're going to talk about the Pleasantville defense, which has been very stout so far this season, and they have done a great job at slowing and stopping down the running game, which is putting teams in tough situations in second, third, and long where they can dial up pressure and force turnovers. And I'm just going to go over a couple plays. This is from last week. You can see the offense in a 2x2 look. This number 2 receiver is tight, but 2 receivers on each side. But look at the box right here. 7 guys in the box. They love playing with these 2 overhang guys, which makes it difficult to run on them. And you're going to see why. I mean, this offense wants to run a zone read concept, right? So they're going to be running the zone read here. They're going to be eyeing this guy right here on whether to give it or the quarterback to take it. You're going to see a bunch of zone blocks, double team blocks right here. And they want to double team this first line up to these backers. But these backers do a really good job of reading, especially this guy, Ryan Horgan. He is a tremendous player, and you're going to see him make it difficult for linemen to get to that second level. Watch this defensive line. I mean, the big thing they want is some movement. You can see this defensive tackle is going to shoot this gap right here. They got 7 guys in the box. And now watch. Watch how this play develops. Right? At the snap of the ball, this overhang sits right here on this hole, which this is a give read. Okay, but look at the movement. There's not a lot of movement right here. Defensive linemen do a good job of holding the double teams. This linebacker's not sitting, right? Horgan, he reads its zone. He's going to shoot this open gap. He's not going to allow this offensive lineman to get to him at the second level. And he does that by deciphering the run play quickly and attacking the line of scrimmage. And just look at him, boom. Shoots up, meets the back in the hole. And now watch the defensive lineman, man. I mean, there's no movement right here. He's going to help finish his tackle. Look at the swarming. Look at everyone getting to the ball right here. I love that. Okay, let's watch it again. Okay, look at him. No hesitation. Reads it, fills his gap. Look at that shot right there. Right, the linemen can't even get to that second lineman. They don't even know where he is. Right, do a good job of moving this guy, but where's that linebacker? He's making a play right now. Let's go to another play. Right, this time a little bit heavier set. Right, this is some power football right here. Again, still showing 3 down linemen, those 2 overhangs and 2 backers. But now, hey, even their secondary gets involved pretty well in stopping the run. Right, here he is hanging right here. Right, everybody contributes in the run game. And they're going to run power. Right, they want to get a double team block. They want to get movement right here. You're going to get a kick out block, guard pulling around, and they're going to be running following this guard. Again, even in power football, watch these guys move right here. First of all, offense does a pretty good job on this double team getting some movement. But look at the secondary. They're not waiting. Right? He reads, runs, sees that down block. He's attacking. Right? Look at this guy attacking. They're not sitting back. Attacking the block. And although they get some movement right here, look at the nose guard. Right? One-on-one block. He's not getting moved. He's driving the center back. Sees the ball. He's going to come right off it right here. Boom. I mean, this is what you see on tape. They are tough to run against. Finally. Again, when it's hard to run the ball, you got to get put into second and third and long. And here's an example. Right? 3rd and 9. And when you get into these situations, these defensive linemen pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. They can generate a lot of pressure. They get sacks. And you're going to see. They're going to try to run play action pass off of this. right? Fake a run this way, roll out. They want to get this guy to squeeze, to slip out of the backfield. You're going to see a deep drag, corner route. Watch these defensive linemen, right? 3rd and long, they know a pass is probably coming. They can explode, right? They're going to send a stunt. Linebackers coming through. Offensive tackle is going to want to step inside, protect the inside gap quickly, but doesn't do it fast enough. This guy explodes off the line of scrimmage, puts him in a bad spot. Watch it. Boom. Takes an inside step. Look how fast he exploded off the edge right there. And I love this. He makes contact with the running back first, slows him down on his route. And now look at him hunting the quarterback now. Pops the ball out, gets the sack, forces a turnover. I mean, this is how Pleasantville puts you in bad situations. They stop the run, get you in 2nd and 3rd and long, and that's when they can pin their ears back. They can bring pressure. They can have their D linemen attack the quarterback. This is a very tough defense, and they're going to have to step up against a high-powered offense this week. All right, Mars, let's go to our game picks. And last week, I went 11-5. You went 11-4, and our friends over at Low had 13-3. So when we look at our overall record, 34-12 for me. You're 33-10. Low at 35-11. Mars, you're winning on the win-loss record. So good for you. I got to catch up. All right, let's do it, Mars. Hudson Valley Football League, Ramapo 2-2 at Portchester 1-3 league matchup. Again, Ramapo is a really difficult team for me to understand. At times they can play at such a high level, and at times not so much. They struggle to score offensively, but Portchester I really thought was kind of catching their win offensively last week, but their defense is one that always concerns me a little bit. When I look at Ramapo, Mars, they have the number 3 defense in the Hudson Valley Football League. I'm going to go with defense this week. Ramapo is going to win it.
Yeah, I'm also going to go Ramapo. I think defense is definitely going to keep them in games, and I think they're just going to capitalize on it. I'm going to go Ramapo.
Massive Hudson Valley Football League matchup. We broke this one down. Edgemont 2-1 at Walter Panas 3-1 league matchup. Listen, I've been very impressed with Edgemont. They're such a small school. Some of their big playmakers and the offensive line, defensive line play has been very impressive, but I'm going Walter Panas. I think they have too much speed. Carlucci's going to make a couple of big-time plays in this one. He had a huge play running the ball last week, Mars. He was carrying dudes to the end zone, 3 or 4 guys. Just a fantastic player. I think he's a little bit too much to handle. I'm going with Walter Panas.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Edgemont. I think Edgemont, G. Leonardo is very good. I think he's going to kind of push this game going forward. I think it's going to be a clearly close game, but I'm going to go Edgemont.
Hudson Valley Football League Hastings 1-3 at Spring Valley, who's 1-2. This is a non-league game. Hastings kind of run into a wall offensively, trying to find some consistency. I think Spring Valley defensively also needs to take a rebound. Way too many big plays given up last week. I think Spring Valley will. I think their speed is a huge factor in this one. I'm going Spring Valley.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think the speed of Spring Valley gives them a bigger advantage here. I'm going to go Spring Valley.
Albertus Magnus 0-3 at Blindbrook, who's 1-3. You see matchup, non-league game. Listen, consistency is the big word here, right? Blindbrook's offense has been pretty solid. They had 3 passing touchdowns last week by Manic to JPD and Verno. They've at times been able to run the ball with efficiency, but the defense has given up too many big plays. And on the other side of the ball, Albertus Magnus offensively can't seem to find consistency. But what I really like about them, Mars, they have the number 5 defense out of the 12 schools in C&D. This defense has been pretty solid. Also, Michael LaRusso getting some carries as a running back. He was at the wide receiver spot. I think they maybe move him around. Him running the ball. I think Albertus Magnus gets their first win this week.
I'm going to agree. I think Albertus Magnus has kind of, they're mixing up who's going to kind of contribute in different ways, and I think that's going to open up their offense a little more. I'm going to go Albertus Magnus.
Team matchup, we broke this one down. Westlake 2-1 at Dobbs. Ferry is 2-1. Both teams can run the ball very well, control time of possession. I'm going to go with the team with a little bit more speed, and both these teams have speed, but I think Westlake has a little bit more. I think Westlake makes enough plays in the passing game. Both these teams will run the ball pretty well. I think Westlake makes enough plays in the passing game that Dobbs Ferry cannot. I'm going Westlake.
I'm going to go Dobbs Ferry. I think that they, obviously going to try to pound the rock. They have a multitude of guys who can make big plays here. I think that Dobbs Ferry is going to win. I'm going Dobbs Ferry.
And who says on Westlake that I don't give them respect?
That's my well. Yeah, apparently will.
Let's go to the Hudson Valley Football League. Another game. Poughkeepsie 0-3 at Greeley, who's 3-1. League rematch of the Hudson Valley Football League title. Listen, Poughkeepsie, they have a lot of new faces, Mars. Defensively, at times, they've given up way too many big touchdowns. I think the offense has been getting a little bit better, but Greeley's humming. And offensively, they've been extremely efficient. I'm going with Greeley, another team that keeps telling me I don't give them enough respect. I'm picking Greeley. They go 4-1. I think they're becoming one of the favorites in the Hudson Valley Football League.
I'm also going to go Greeley. I think that they have a lot of weapons on offense. Defensively, they've been playing pretty well, too. I'm going to go Greeley here.
CD matchup, Tuckahoe, 3-0 at Putt Valley, who's 2-1. Non-league game. Listen, Putt Valley, they can run the ball, and at times have been really strong running the ball. Defensively, up front, they can cause some havoc. But, man, Tuckahoe is playing at such a high level, Mars. I think they're probably playing the best out of all the C&D schools I've watched so far. I'm going to go with Tuckahoe. They're just humming too well.
Yeah, I'm also going to agree. I think Tuckahoe is just kind of in the groove right now. I think that their momentum's on their side. I'm going to go Tuckahoe.
B matchup, Mars. Hen Hud 0-3 at Nanuet, who's 2-1 in a league game. Both these offenses have really struggled. Nanuet, the 7th-ranked offense in points scored. Hen Hud, the 8th-ranked offense. But to me, it's the other side of the ball that's the biggest surprise. Not so much Nanuet. They have been really strong. The number 3 defense in points allowed. Hen Hud, Mars, the number 8th defense in points allowed. Giving up way too many big touchdowns. I think Moran has some big runs in this one. They do enough in the passing game. I'm going Nanuet.
Yeah, I'm also going Nanuet. I do agree with you. I think that Hen Hud, their offense this year kind of has, the defense this year has had some struggles. So I think Nanuet has more of the advantage on the defensive side. I'm going to go Nanuet.
Briarcliff Hamilton football program 1-3, but 0-3 in league play at Pro River was 1-2. This is an interesting matchup, Mars. I thought Briarcliff Hamilton played really hard versus Byram Hills last week. Defensively, they were really stout in important moments near the red zone. Adam Harris has been really strong defensively for them. Raphael made a huge play by the goal line. But I think Pro River is kind of on an upward trajectory. I think they've been running the ball better. I think the passing game has been slowly being more efficient. Guys like Whalen, and they've hit some big plays the last week. I'm going to go with Pro River at home, I think is the big difference.
Yeah, I might go the same. I think that they have some home field advantage. They're really trying to get everything together. They're going to have some big plays from their offensive playmakers. I'm going to go with Pro River.
CD matchup, Haldane 2-1 at Rhinebeck, who is 1-2 non-league game. Marsh, you picked a big Rhinebeck win, and they came through for you last week. Defense played very well. They just made enough plays offensively to win the game, but Haldane really struggled defensively last week. I think they rebound big time. Offense will put up some more points this time around. Love the way Rhinebeck played effort-wise last week, but I think Haldane takes a step up, especially defensively. I'm going with Haldane.
Hey, listen, I went with Rhinebeck last time. I have to kind of do it again. I'm gonna go Rhinebeck this time.
Okay. I mean, you're just doing that out of spite, or
I'm doing it out of support for Rhinebeck.
You didn't even give me good reasons.
I'm doing it out of support. I'm doing it out of support for Rhinebeck. So they're rolling with Mars. I'm gonna roll with Rhinebeck.
Let's do a C matchup. Valhalla 3-0 at Woodlands, who's 1-3. This is a non-league matchup. Listen, Woodlands is another team that you're going to see some inconsistency with. At one time, the offense was humming. Last week, it was a bit of a struggle, but defensively, Atkins has been an absolute stud for them. Really like the way he's played. But Valhalla, Mars, boy, they have a team that no one's really talking about. Been extremely explosive, and I think if I have the numbers right, I think they have the number 1 defense in points allowed out of the C&D schools. So, again, really explosive offense, and defense has been playing really strong. I'm going with Valhalla.
Yeah, I think all around Valhalla has been like the hidden team, and I do agree. I'm going to go Valhalla here. They do have just an all-around solid group of guys on offense and defensively. I'm going to go Valhalla because I think the momentum's on their side. I think it'll win.
Hudson Valley Football League matchup. Tappan Zee 2-2 at Peekskill, who's 0-3. This is a league game. Again, we talked about Peekskill a lot. Rebuilding program. Had some bright moments over the last couple weeks that I've seen. But Tappan Zee, I think their rush attack is too strong. But the big concern for me is their health. I think they lost a couple guys, beat up a little bit from last week. I think they have enough this week. They're going to run the ball efficiently. Defense is going to be playing a little bit better, especially out on the edge. I'm going to go Tappan Zee.
I'm going to agree. I think Tappan Zee does have the advantage on the edge. I think they're going to use that to their advantage just to keep getting more and more yards. I'm going to go with Tappan Zee.
C matchup: Croton Harmon 1-2 at Irvington, who 1-2. Both teams were shut out last week, Mars. Both teams want to try to, again, Irvington wants to run the ball. I think they'll have a lot more success running the ball this time. This one was hard for me because I thought Croton Harmon defensively played pretty solid last week. Can the offense find some consistency? It seems like when one side of the ball plays well, the other one doesn't. I think they find a little more consistency this week. I really like the way Irvington can run the ball, and at times have been very efficient. But I'm going to go with Croton Harmon. I think in a little bit of an upset this week.
I go Irvington. I think I'm going to go with the home field advantage. I think they're going to be more consistent. They're going to have more motivation on their side.
Ardsley 2-1 at Bronxville, who's 1-3 big league matchup. Ardsley, I think offensively will play a little bit better. They will not turn the ball over 5 times. It won't be as ugly as it was last week. But Ardsley's still a young team. I think they have to learn how to win on the road. They went to Nanuet, couldn't finish drives. I'm going to go Bronxville. It's not easy to win at Bronxville. Listen, Ardsley has kind of had Bronxville's number over the last few meetings. I think Bronxville changes that around. I thought they played Pleasantville pretty tough, Mars. And I know Ardsley also played Nanuet pretty tough. But listen, Bronxville was close. They were at an overtime, close near the goal line, had a pass interference. They had an opportunity to tie that game up and send it into another overtime. Just came a little bit short. I think offensively, rely on the run a little bit more, makes a couple big pass plays, and defensively, they do enough to stop the running game. I'm going Bronxville.
I go with Ardsley. I know they have a young squad, but they just, if you look at them, if they were just more efficient on flags, just holding on to the ball, I think they would just be even a better team. But you'll see better performances. So I think they will be more efficient. I'm going to go with Ardsley here.
They probably would have won last week. Game of the week time, Mars. Byram Hills 4-0 at Pleasantville 3-0. You will not pick this game, but any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that this is almost like the Battle of the Titans. I think right now these are the top 2 teams in B at the moment, and you're really going to see which team is going to have the momentum on their side going into week 5 and week 6. I think Byram Hills has a lot of weapons on this team. The offensive line is going to be really dangerous. I think the D line is going to be really dangerous, and Pleasantville is also going to be they have a lot of guys who can make plays. Right, obviously Dan Bacard is going to be the key dude here, but on the offensive side, you have guys like Eric Coleman, Emma McDermott, like I said before, Brian McPhee, Lewis Dow, and amongst others that can really contribute to a W here. And defensively, they just have a lot of guys who are just stuffers. I think Brian Horgan is playing out of his mind right now. He's really vying for an all-section linebacker spot because he's just been all over the field. Right, like I said, Byram is going to be a really difficult opponent. Pleasantville is going to be a difficult opponent. Both guys, it's going to be a battle of the Titans. I think whoever wins this game is going to have the advantage when it comes to week 5 and week 6, just because now they have the tiebreaker. It's going to be really interesting when we get to rankings. But it's going to be a really interesting game here.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a lot of good points, Mars. I do think this is kind of the Battle of the Titans right here. It could be a preview for a section title game in the future. Listen, I think Byram Hills is very dangerous. And the big question I have is, again, who's going to be completely available at full strength? Don't know the status of one of their stud players. And on the other side, Pleasantville, right, if Picard doesn't do superhuman things, who else is going to step up for them offensively? Right, those are kind of the big factors. Pleasantville is really hard to run against. Scheme-wise, they make it hard, but also the play of the guys up front on the D-line and linebacking core also makes it very tough to run because they tackle well and they swarm to the ball, which is huge. Looking at these, I think they're evenly matched. And because of that, I'm going to go with the home field advantage and the best player, which I think is Daniel Picard and Pleasantville. And so it's going to be a close game. I do think Pleasantville is going to win at the end. I think this is not going to be a high-scoring matchup, Mars. I think, again, not a low-scoring, 80s type game, but this is going to not be as high-scoring as people think it will be. I do think both defenses are going to step up. I'm going with Pleasantville with the win. All right, everyone, that was our show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe for future content and to help the channel. We hope you guys enjoy this weekend's games. We'll see you all very soon.